Hey everybody, Ben here from DMC Films and Cinderblock Studios, and I'm back with a quick tip talking about refilling a Pentel brush pen. So a couple months back, I did a review for the Pentel Pocket Brush Pen, and I talked about how much I really love this pen. The one thing I kind of gave it a negative tick on were the refill cartridges for this, which can get expensive really fast. So one thing that was suggested to me by a friend was, why not try and refill the cartridges with another type of ink? And I thought of two different inks pretty much right away. First one, not really an ink, but something I've been wanting to try for a while. I'm glad to have it in the studio now, is Golden High Flow Black Acrylic. So this is an acrylic product. It's basically paint. It is paint, not basically paint, but it's thin and very low viscosity. Feels a lot like an acrylic ink. So I definitely wanted to try this in the pen. The other thing I thought of was regular black India ink. India ink I really like, but a lot of times, depending on the application and the surface of the paper, I can notice a little bit of a purplish tint to the ink, which is interesting, but it doesn't happen everywhere, which I thought was really strange. So it's one of those things where it's like, is it going to have that? Am I going to see that ink difference between the India ink and something like my Microns and my regular Uniball pens? Because a lot of times when I'm trying different inks in my day-to-day sketching, I'm seeing things like, oh, you can very clearly see the difference between this pen and this pen, and I didn't want to have that happen. So when my last cartridge ran out, I said, okay, I definitely really want to try basically drawing with the black, the carbon black. Now, I had three big concerns with using this. First is when I bought this, I thought this is cool, and then I kind of shook it around a little bit, and I heard a couple things, and I was like, wait a minute. There's a paint mixing ball in here, same as what you might find in a spray can. I was like, oh, that means this stuff separates, which, I mean, in a small enough quantity, I thought, maybe it could work, maybe it couldn't. So my biggest concerns were, how is it going to dry on my sketchbook? And I'm like, is it going to take longer to dry? Is it going to take less time? I didn't really know, because I was debating in my head. I was like, well, it's acrylic, it should dry a little bit faster than ink, but there's a flow aid in here that slows the drying time, so maybe it'll be slower, faster. I kept debating with myself. I had no idea. The next thing is that I didn't know how it was going to dry into the page, if it was going to like bleed through and have like 6 layers in my next few sketchbook pages. That was a major concern. And the third one, is it going to ruin the pen? Because it is an acrylic product, I thought, oh my god, is it going to dry into the bristles and destroy this pen? And I was really surprised to find that for the first couple of days of working with it, it was fine. It was actually perfect. I thought it was a fantastic use of this. My god, it worked. Nothing's happening to the pen. I immediately thought I wanted a red one and a white one, so I could have like a white liner pen. I was like, that would be great. The third day, however, was a little more interesting, because I started noticing some flow issues. And so at this point, I was kind of using it a little bit during the day, and I was like, I got to clean this out right now, because I immediately noticed that problem. Just notice this is going to be a long, quick tip. So I was looking at it, like, it didn't actually dry into the pen, and I don't think it was actually drying into the mechanism inside the pen. One thing that I didn't account for was the little bit of an air gap that there is right where the cartridge hits the actually pen mechanism. And that is where it was starting to dry. It was actually drying a little bit on the inside of the cartridge, or the outside of the cartridge, the outside of the inside of the cartridge. So basically where it sticks to the plastic, starting to dry there. And it was starting to dry a little bit into the mechanism, and I was like, that's not where I thought I was going to have the problem. But now that I immediately saw that problem, I blew some air through it, I rinsed it out, came back to life, not a problem. So unless you're going to use, if you're going to use this in your Pentel pen, use it like immediately, like use the entire cartridge refill within like 2 days. Otherwise you're going to have some problems. So this was not a good replacement. Next up was the India ink. So I cleaned everything out, got it back to working order, put this in it, and holy crap does it work. It is phenomenal. It is a little, now granted the viscosity is a little bit different. The India ink is a little more fluid. The ink that comes with these cartridges is a bit more viscous, but not so much. When you're running out or something like that, and you tip the pen, the stuff that comes with this has a little more of a body to it. But you honestly, I don't notice it. The one thing that is slightly different with Indie ink in this pen is that it's actually a little bit more transparent. I actually don't notice the color difference. I know there is one, but between my other pens, I don't see it, which is really rare to use Indie ink on paper and not see that color difference. I don't know if it's the paper I'm using. I don't know if it's any residual stuff that's in this brush, or just the way the brush pen works, but I thought that was really cool. It can be a little more transparent. I notice it tends to, especially if I'm doing faster strokes with this, I still get that nice dry brush effect, but a lot of times the ink thins out and I need to do like a second coat over top of that. So it is more versatile that way. I can kind of get something like a neutral, imagine something like a cool or neutral gray and a Copic marker that's something like I don't even know what the numbers are. So something like one number to the next. So say something like N5 to N6, for example. Now they are darker than the N5 and the N6, but to give you an example, it starts and then you kind of go over it again, and you can see that difference in your sketch. Can be both a good thing and a bad thing, but honestly, the fact that you can refill these with Indie ink makes them absolutely, hands down, my probably best recommended product for the year so far, anyway. So that's just a little addendum to the review. So pick yourself up a Pentel brush pen, especially if you already have Indie ink in your studio or in your workspace, because you can just refill them so much cheaper rather than getting 2 refills for $3. You can get a full 1 ounce bottle of this ink for like $2 or $3. So a bottle of ink will probably refill one of these like, oh god, dozen times at least. So highly recommend it. This is probably the longest quick tip on record, and we're coming up on 7.5 minutes here, but I just wanted to talk about that. Pick yourself up one, subscribe for more, and this has been from DMC Films and Cinderblock Studios. See you guys next time.